Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Veronica Neufer. My guest is Representative Mike Nearman from House District 23 in Polk County area and parts of Yamhill County. And he is here today to give me his perspective on the last session in 2019, which ended in July, I believe. And he'll be recapping that and from his perspective, and then we'll be going on to talk about the next session and what he expects to go on there. So thank you, Representative Nearman.
Good. Thanks for having me, Veronica.
And thanks for coming on. You've been, quite busy last session with everything that went on, and I just was having a heck of a time trying to get anybody to have enough time to come on. So we finally, it's either the newspapers or the news, or now we get you in person to get the real story.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah. How do you think it went?
So
Crazy.
Yeah, crazy, and it could have gone a lot worse. So there's a lot of things, a lot of bad things happened, but there was a lot of bad things that were looming that didn't happen. And so, like for instance, we didn't get a cap and trade bill, and we didn't almost no bad gun legislation passed. So those are some good things. So I think we did the best we could with what we had, and considering they had a supermajority. So they were able to pass billions of dollars in new taxes, and
really?
Yeah. So we'll be paying on those coming up.
How's that going to look? The $1 billion. I mean, they've been hiding it in fees. charging more for license plate tags and things like that.
Sure.
How's this $1 billion going to look?
So one of the biggest taxes that they passed was it's a gross receipts tax, which is what the voters rejected with Measure 97 several years ago, and now they just passed that. I think that was I think they're up to, the estimate is $2.8 billion a biennium. That's what that will be, and it's earmarked for education, so it's nice and warm and fuzzy and everything. But it's just to kind of backfill for all the PERS and everything like that, and it doesn't even have to be dedicated to education. They can shovel the money out the back door while they're shoveling it in the front. So
can you tell me what the tax is again? The grocery.
Yeah, it's a gross receipts tax. So that means that it's on businesses. It's a tax on businesses. So it's not a tax on regular people, but regular people will have to pay it in the end because businesses will just have to raise their prices. So it's kind of a little bit of not really a very honest way to do a tax. And the thing that's really bad about it, it's a gross receipts tax. So for instance, if you have like a low margin business or something like that. So like for instance, if it's a retail thing, like grocery stores for instance, and they don't make, they do a lot of business, but they don't make very much profit on every little can of Campbell's soup that they sell or anything like that. But that's okay. On this tax, you pay it on the gross receipts. So whatever comes through your cash register, you pay the tax on, not on your profits. So even if you lose money, you still pay the tax. So it's a pretty hard-hitting tax that way. So,
what's the percentage, or how much are people going to have to pay? I'm businesses. I'm a business, so I say we.
Yeah. So I'm not sure what the exact percentage is, but it's slated to raise $2.8 billion there. So that's.
And these are receipts, people in the retail.
Yeah. So whatever comes through your cash register, you will pay a tax on that, whether or not you made a profit or not. So if you have a $10 item and it gets damaged and you sell it for $9, you're going to pay tax on the $9, even though you lost $1 already.
Yeah.
So that's going to be very harsh. That's going to be very hard on businesses and some businesses are going to be more affected than others on that.
Is that including restaurants?
Sure, yeah, all businesses. I should say all businesses. They carved out some of their friends, some of the people who have powerful lobbyists in there. So like
the big businesses that
Intel
are powerful.
And Nike and those kinds of things got themselves carved out of that.
Oh, look at that, big business.
So you're telling me, Veronica, you don't have a big enough, powerful enough lobbyist to go down in Salem and get your operation carved out? Well, I guess you're going to have to pay the tax there. So
the little guy, I don't know how they get by with this propaganda that they are for the little or the average person, and then they pick on businesses when they're businesses and the Democrats are best friends, and
Yep.
and then sometimes the corrupt Republicans.
Yeah.
The corrupt Republicans and
Yep.
businesses are best friends
Yep,
too.
that's what
But
went
not the
on
good
there.
Republicans,
You
yeah.
characterized it perfectly there. Yeah. So so we got our taxes raised,
Mm-hmm.
and we got a bunch of other things. Another thing that was bad that didn't happen that could have happened was the forced vaccine thing too. So that was a kind of a funny little show there. So, but so we did okay. We did the best we could with what we got. So.
Yeah. Are they going to try to bring that up again, or you think that's dead because?
I've heard that it is coming back. So I've heard that the cap and trade is coming back, and forced vaccinations are coming back. So.
You know, they just require the citizens to keep working and watching them. You
Yep.
know, and I guess the only good news in that is maybe it'll turn some Democrats with the forced vaccination into conservatives.
Yep, and that is happening,
So
yeah.
low government, yeah.
So the you know, the question is what's going to happen in a short session, and ordinarily the generic answer would be that that the party in power would do whatever they can. The short session is the political session. It's going to be held just a couple of months before the primaries. So it's the session where the party in power.
Can you tell me the month?
So yeah, it'll be in February, and it'll
Okay.
goes a little bit into March, and then the primaries, of course, are held in May. So it's just a little bit ahead of the primaries there, and it's a session where the party in power will try to put the other party into a bad position. So they'll try to make us take some bad votes and everything like that, and then ordinarily they would do things that are nice and warm and fuzzy and look good and for the kids and for the, you know, all the warm and fuzzy things that they can do. That would be the ordinary way to do that. But I think that their left wing is going to lean on them so hard that I think they won't be able to do that. I think they're going to do some of this same overreach kind of stuff in the short session, and we'll see how the voters like that in 2020. So
Yeah.
that may hurt them.
Did you go to the Yamhill County Fair? Did you go to any of the summer events?
No, I did not make it to the Yamhill County Fair this year. I was very disappointed that I wasn't able to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I made it to the fair just once, and I didn't make it to the other stuff, which is unusual, but I usually go to some of that. But
Oh, I was at Turkey Rama though.
the
so
Turkey
yeah.
Rama. Okay, well,
Yeah.
maybe you saw the same thing. I don't know, but they had some ballot measures to sign,
yeah.
and the line was astronomical
Yeah.
for recalling Kate Brown.
Yeah.
And I looked at well, I just walked by. I wasn't really paying attention. It was in hindsight. I thought, oh my goodness, I don't think I saw one person at the Democratic booth, but the Republican booth
Yeah.
was just full and full and full. And,
Yeah.
and no, the fair is in McMinnville, which tends to be more left-leaning and right-leaning,
Yeah.
but still no Democrats in the booth, and a load
Although
of
county fairs tend to be kind of a little bit kind of country kind of things
Oh.
tend to be a little bit more of that. But your point's well taken though, is that, and I saw that too. So I was at the Polk County Fair, and I saw people that were bending over backwards to try to sign the Recall Kate Brown thing. And as a matter of fact, I'm working with the Oregon Republican Party to do some of the get the validations, the signatures on the Recall Kate Brown thing. And when I do that, I can run a report of party affiliation, and it's amazing how many non-affiliated voters and how many even Democrats and independents are signing that petition. So it's just very interesting how the overreach is really not going over well with the voters. So
Yeah, that
we'll
is
see.
interesting. I mean, especially with the propaganda. You know, Democrats, they get the emails from other Democrats, and it's usually, you know, obviously, it favors them.
Yeah.
So when
It'll
a
be
Democrat can actually look past that
Yeah.
and still see what's going on.
Yeah, yeah. It'll be interesting. I think you're going to see a phenomenon, or I'm hopeful we'll see a phenomenon that's similar to what we saw in 2010. The 2010 election was right on the heels of Measures 66 and 67, where the legislature passed those. Those were some same kind of thing, business taxes there that weren't very popular at the time, and it cost the Democrats 5 seats in the House. So, so I'm hopeful that we'll see another kind of groundswell like that, and people making the Democrats pay for their overreach.
Tell me about Kate Brown and your impression. Just
So Kate Brown, she's trained as an environmental lawyer, and so she's very much of an ideological player. It's a lot distinct from John Kitzhaber, I think. John Kitzhaber certainly was a liberal and certainly, leaned to the left, but he was not so much of an ideological player. He was somebody who was interested in governing the state of Oregon. Even the one time when he left office during his first two terms and he shook his fist and said Oregon is ungovernable, which kind of shows me that he at the very least cared about governing. Now I don't share, I'm not in the same party as Governor Kitzhaber was or anything, but at least he was somebody who cared about governing Oregon. Kate Brown is just a tool of the hard left interests, and that's what the goal is. And you see the way she runs the state so that it's a bulwark against Donald Trump. That's not governing. That's cheerleading, and I don't think that's healthy for Oregon.
Well, yeah, it's divisive, and people, the left accuses Trump of being divisive, but actually, he tries to do what he does, and when somebody goes after him, he's actually willing to go after him, and I say willing because the Republicans in the past would just kind of cow down and not say anything, and he holds them accountable, but they're the ones that are telling people, your president hates you. Because you're black. Your president hates you because you're gay. Your president hates you because you're this or that, or you're Mexican or whatever. And that's not true. That's that's so divisive, and it must be hurtful for people to think that the president hates them.
Yeah. I think people get it. I think people are not so stupid.
Regular people, but there's a lot of black people that think that they're actually hated by Trump, even though there might be black
some
people that love him.
Yeah, there might be some, but I'll tell you, I think that the left throws out the white supremacists and the racists and all that kind of stuff. They throw those terms around and those labels around all the time. And I don't know any white supremacists. Do you know anybody who's a white supremacist?
No, but lately I've been.
Do you know anybody who's a racist? I mean, I don't.
No. I've known two people in my life that were racist.
Yeah.
Two people in my life that I know of, and nobody cares.
Yeah. And they certainly don't, they're not politically powerful people or anything like that. And so how do you get to be president of the United States and be a white supremacist? That's just simply not possible.
Yeah.
And so I think people get that, and they know that that's not the case. And when Democrats run around saying that, it's, everybody can't be a racist, So it's
Well, I wish people were as smart as you, because there's a lot of inner city people that they just hear the propaganda.
Right, exactly. And some people get whipped into a frenzy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. But I think just your average Joe six-pack or whatever isn't buying it.
Yeah,
so.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, hopefully it'll be more and more. Okay, well, so back to Kate Brown. I mean, I'm just, does she believe this stuff, or is she power hungry? Is she a nice person? I heard Representative Bill Post, when he first met her, said she was kind of a grandmotherly type of person.
She's a nice person. That's not all that significant to say that, because you don't get very far in politics if you're a big jerk. So, there's a few exceptions to that, but I think most people that are involved in politics are nice people, so that doesn't really say very much. I've met her a handful of times, and she's nice, and I have a nice, pleasant conversation with her or anything like that, but she's playing brass knuckles, hardcore ideological politics, and there's no doubt about that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, is she? She's a globalist.
Yeah. I would say probably, which goes hand in hand with the environmentalism and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, that's what I don't think the average. Talking about the average Joe, that people that are concerned about our environment or whatever, that they believe in, CO2. That they don't seem to realize that trees like CO2, and it makes trees grow, and trees take our oxygen, and it's a perfect little balance that happens. And, anyway, can't remember where I was going with that, but the environmentalism is costing us so much money.
Yeah.
But I wonder sometimes, does she really believe that, or is she a globalist? And because globalists, true globalists, don't really believe in it. They know that it's they know it's propaganda to gain power.
Oh, I see your point there.
Yeah.
No, so I think Yeah, so in that sense, I'd say that she's not a globalist. It's not, for her, it's not about power. I think it's about ideology. And I might be wrong about that, but just knowing her, I think that she's a believer.
She believes that we're going to ruin the world if she doesn't step in.
I think she's like many people in politics, and like certainly a lot of Democrats, is she certainly enjoys power. So I don't mean to leave that impression that she doesn't enjoy power. But with her, I think she does. She believes the environmental stuff.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to know. I've been wondering what angle she comes from. So speaking of, the opposite of power, freedom. You are a member of the Oregon Freedom Foundation.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I just took a position as the Oregon director of the Freedom Foundation. So the Freedom Foundation is a national organization that helps public employee union members opt out of their unions there. They don't have to be a member of the union. If they want to, they can go to our website. It's optouttoday.com, and they can opt out of their union that way. So we've gotten really good response on that, even since we had a U.S. Supreme Court decision 13 months ago that ruled that you don't have to be a member of your union to keep your job. And so since then, we've, like for instance, SEIU 503, we've reduced their ranks by 26%. So that's a significant hit to public employee unions and a game changer politically in Oregon. If you look at how many people are public employee union members,
how many in Oregon?
I'm going to say just under 300,000, but so that's not even a tenth of the state or anything like that. But the public employee unions, I think, they're certainly the most powerful influence in Salem, and I mean, they're the disproportionate influence that public employee unions have. And then that's not even taking into account that not everybody who's a public employee worker, who's even a member of the union, agrees with their union and is lockstep with their union. So there's a disconnect in the amount of power that they have, and that's part of what the Freedom Foundation does, is try to mitigate that power.
So if people wanted this, they go to your website. But what do you do to generate this to make things better?
So one of the things we do is we go door to door, and we have canvassers that knock doors of public employee workers and tell them that they have the right to opt out of their union. And we send them mail telling them they have the right to opt out.
Do you knock on doors?
I have, yeah. And then not only that, is if the union gives them a hard time, because they do sometimes, is we have lawyers, and we provide them with legal help on that. So we send demand letters, and even to the extent of we'll take the public employee unions to court. So we're a one-stop shop for all your opt-out needs.
When you've gone to doors, what kind of response have you gotten?
So it's for me, I'm kind of up to my neck in it, and so for me, the court case, it's Janus versus AFSCME. I know about that court case, and I know the implications of it, and it always surprises me of how many public workers don't have any knowledge of that. They think they have to be a member of the union, and they don't. And so it's just surprising to me that it's not in the union's interest to let them know that. So nobody tells them. So unless we do. So.
And if they're not a member of the union, they still make the union wages.
Yep,
they still get all the benefits.
They're still under the union contract, whatever.
They just don't have to pay that money.
They just don't have to pay that money.
The power. And so the money that the union gets, is that all lobbying money, or? Yeah,
so that money, it can go all to political stuff, and actually it starts as dark money. And so, I had an interesting thing the other day. I was listening to the radio, and there was these. This was when the senators had walked out of the legislature. So they're playing these radio commercials saying, you need to tell Kim Thatcher, or you need to tell Fred Gerard to show up back to work to do his job or her job, whatever, something, typical kind of hit job thing. And then at the end it said, authorized and paid for by Our Oregon, right? And you've heard of Our Oregon. That's kind of where the political money goes. So it goes from the unions to Our Oregon. So I thought, I'll look in ORSTAR, in the Secretary of State's database, database where we have transparency on political spending to see how much they spent on those commercials, because I was kind of interested. Well, our Oregon isn't a political organization, so that was just union money that was just informing you, whatever, of what was going on, and so that money's not traceable or anything like that. So they're spending dark money on these radio commercials that are to me explicitly political. So I was kind of taken aback by that. So so when you ask, oh, where does the money go and all this kind of stuff, there's no knowledge of it because there's no public accounting of it.
You have lawyers. Can the lawyers fix this? Take them to court?
No, well, I mean, people have privacy, and so organizations have privacy, whatever, if you're not a political organization, whatever. But unless they actually tell you to vote for somebody or don't vote for somebody, or to vote for a ballot measure or vote against a ballot measure or something like that, it's not explicit political speech, right? They can say, Kim Thatcher ought to be doing her job and call her office and tell her to get back to work, right?
Oh, I see.
And that's not political speech in Oregon. So anyway, so it's all dark money, and it's a lot of it. So right now we're costing the unions about $18 million a year in Oregon through opt-outs, as we've opted out that many people. Yeah, we have 15,000 since that Supreme Court decision. We've had over 15,000 people opt out, and that accounts for about $18 million a year and growing. And it's every year it's $18 million. So we're having a huge influence on that.
Yeah, that's good. Well, hopefully it'll make a change. Hopefully we'll stop the overflow of bad bills.
Yeah,
through this, you know.
Well, something does have to change, because the influence, like I said, things are out of whack in Oregon. Oregon's a little bit of a blue state, maybe kind of purpley blue or whatever. But this cap and trade stuff and these taxes and all that kind of stuff, that's not Oregon. That's not what the state's about. So.
Yeah, all our trees and natural beauty and everything. We should be taking advantage of that. So.
All of our natural resources, which we can't, like you said, we can't take advantage of that. We should be a natural resource extraction economy, and we don't do that. We've shut that down in a lot of ways in Oregon. We need to do it responsibly, sustainably, but we should be a natural resource extraction economy. We have gobs of trees, we have abundant fish and wildlife, we have minerals and everything, and there's ways to do that responsibly, and that's what we should be doing as a state.
And we can't do that with our governor as a huge environmentalist, that she takes this approach that she doesn't even look at. She's very dogmatic on this is the way you do it, without looking at the full big picture.
We don't touch planet Earth and all that kind of stuff. Just everything going down to how we manage wildfires, which, going back to, you were talking about carbon earlier, that's the #1 source of CO2 in the atmosphere in Oregon is wildfires. And so, but we don't have as a priority to put them out. You know, we had these summers, it didn't really happen so much this summer, but it happened in the last 2 summers, when we're sitting here in August choking on smoke, you know, from elsewhere in the state or whatever. And when I was a kid, that never happened. I don't ever remember that happening, whatever. But but now it seems like it's every other year we have to choke on smoke for a couple of months or something like that. And I know they are in Southern Oregon a little bit, but we kind of lucked out and had kind of a cool summer this year. But that's the #1 source of CO2. So if you really believe in saving the planet and everything, we should be putting those wildfires out. But the environmentalists say, oh no, we don't want to drive a bulldozer through the forest or anything like that, so just let it burn, kind of thing. That's what's happening with Oregon.
Makes no sense. Government cannot run things very well. That's not what we didn't put them in place to run government. That's not what our founding fathers did. We put them in place to just help govern and just, you know, kind of make things, you know, with the infrastructure, and try to keep them as small as possible, because we cannot, you know, trust people that are powerful, because powerful people, a lot of times they want more power, and so we need to hold them accountable. Any last words? Yeah, so I'll pick up on that point there. When we increased taxes by $2.8 billion a biennium, which is what we did just with one bill this last session there, that not only has the effect of costing Oregonians, going to cost every man, woman, and child in Oregon about $450 a year, but that money gets used to grow government, and to the very point that you were making, is that's not healthy. That's not a healthy
society that has a larger...
$450 times a house full of 4?
Yeah, and then it's, no, it's $450 for every man, woman, and child. So if you got a third grader, he's got a $450 bill on there, and he doesn't have a job. So that means you and me are going to have to split it up. So
yeah, so
my retired grandmother.
For 4 people, $1,800.
Yeah, exactly.
For our household.
Yeah,
$1,800 for a household is what this bill increased. Yep, and they've done it kind of in the shadowy, where they tax the businesses.
Yep, exactly.
And we're just going to see, and so most people, as usual, they're not going to know.
Yep.
So. Yep. Okay. Well, thank you.
Good. Thanks for having me on, Veronica. It's always fun.
All right.
Yep.
And thank you for tuning in. Keep our government accountable. Hope you can get involved in everything, just in all the different, signing the ballots, the petitions out there, and just knowing what's going on. Be part of citizen lobbyists so you can make a difference. Go to some of the Republican meetings, and there's so many ways to be involved, so I hope and encourage you to do that. Thanks for tuning in. Have a good week. Bye-bye. Shiitake green tea, 2 incredibly healthy ingredients in 1 tasty cup. Check out many testimonials online for both shiitake and green tea, rich in antioxidants and other natural ingredients. Find more of our healthy mushroom teas at 11powerpolitics.com.